The third challenge is that, we don't want the government to say, well, 6.1 billion is going to make us financially irresponsible. When this money, none of it will be spent in this government term. It will all be in the next term of government. So there's no intention. There'd be minor amounts spent starting a pilot, but that would be it. The major commitment would come in the next term of government. And we believe that that's, that it's good for the government to make a commitment for the next government. They'll be back in, out of deficit, and there's no reason. And really, if we were the business community, we'd have no qualms in saying 6.1 billion is needed for industry, for some industry scheme, or if it's defence, we'd have no qualms. So why in disability are we so, like everywhere I go, I meet people with disabilities and families saying, oh, but how will the government be able to afford it? Well, they can afford it. And we've somehow got to get the mindset that says that this is affordable. It's the next term of government. It's the forgotten area that's been neglected shamefully, and it has to happen. So we've got to get tougher and stronger about demanding. We've been very, very lightweight on demanding. We've been very quiescent and passive, and I think we've got to make a demand for this scheme. So that's terribly important. The hung parliament in some ways should assist us, because the Greens are very supportive, and there have been, the independents have discussed supporting the scheme. The opposition has spoken very supportively about the scheme, about the National Disability Insurance Scheme. And at the Congress last week in Melbourne, they did say they were going to support the scheme. So we've now got to get this government, when I read in the media criticisms of the government, that they don't stand for much, that they haven't really been identified with as values, I think, well, here's one for you. Here's a great values-based issue. But the trouble is that it's not glamorous. And that's somehow what we can't make ourselves glamorous. I don't think I'd even want to try. But on the other hand, somehow this has to become the values-based issue for the government to really be proud about. This is like Medicare. This is like national superannuation. This is a really big idea for the government to be proud about, for its history. It may or may not get in the next election, but boy, it could go down in history as the government that did the National Disability Insurance Scheme. So it might sound a little bit short-term for me to give you, this is my major issue, but I think it is so very important. The Council is working away on the National Disability Strategy. We've put a major submission into the AGOSCI inquiry into school funding. It's quite a controversial submission. I suggest you have a look at it. You might not agree with everything in it, but basically what the Council's called for is major reform of school funding, where every school becomes programmatically able to take any child and develop their learning capacity to the maximum. So in that sense, our submission is slightly moving away from the topic of the money attached to the child, to make every school able to take every child, and for additional funds for support to be provided, but for learning needs to be supported by learning experts in schools. So I encourage you to have a look at it. Nobody's noticed it. It's up on the AGOSCI website, and we can send it out and about too, because we want to start a discussion about education. Because the National Disability Strategy encompasses all the other issues that would surround the National Disability Insurance Scheme. If we get the National Disability Strategy, which is a high-level strategy, to be low level, to get the goals and targets that make it work on the ground, if we get the National Disability Insurance Scheme, then I think in another 5 years, Australia could look very, very different for people with disabilities and families and friends and loved ones. I think it would be a very, very different landscape. And so we could be here, you know, part of the biggest reform, even bigger than Don Grimes in his day. This is really the most significant reform agenda I've ever seen and would be transformational. And I can only end by encouraging you all to participate in it. You've got everything to gain from being really part of that. And you know, if every one of you got 50 others to not only sign up, the government needs letters with stamps on them. They don't need emails, and sign up on the website by all means, because then you're plugged into the campaign too. And we want 250,000 signatures on the website. We've only got 17,000 so far. It might even be less than that. 250,000 is what you need. We need Get Up to take the campaign on, so nag Get Up and send emails to Get Up. They're not taking it on, we're not glamorous. So we've got to persuade Get Up to take this on. It's got to become mainstream, but the government needs letters. Bureaucrats should be sitting writing answers to letters by the thousands, so that this becomes the most dominating topic for the bureaucracy in Canberra. State governments need letters too. Most state governments, or some state governments, are really going well in their discussions about, you know, cooperating. Some are not going so well. So if you're in Western Australia, you should be writing to the government in that state too about wanting this scheme. So, you know, I'd like to stop at that point, but really it's time for change, you know, and it's in our hands actually. And I just feel very fortunate to still be on the earth to hopefully see this through to the end. And then I'm genuinely going to retire.